It was late in the evening, and the streets of the city were almost empty. The air was cool, carrying the scent of rain that had fallen earlier, leaving small puddles on the sidewalks. Michael walked slowly, his black coat buttoned neatly, his polished shoes clicking softly against the pavement. Most people in his position would have gone home in a private car, but he had asked his driver to leave earlier. Tonight, he wanted to walk. Michael was a man known in the city. His name often appeared in business magazines and newspapers, the type of man people pointed at and whispered about, "That's the CEO of Harrington Enterprises." He had everything people usually dreamed of: wealth, power, respect. Yet when he walked alone like this, his tall figure blending into the shadows of the night, he didn't feel rich. He didn't feel powerful. He just felt like a father, a man still learning how to raise his daughter without the love of the woman he had once called his wife. The thought of home tugged at his heart. His little girl, Anna, was probably sitting in the living room with her coloring books, waiting for him even though the nanny had told her it was bedtime. Anna always waited. She was his world, his reason for working so hard. But she was also the reminder of how lonely his life had become. Ever since his wife passed away, silence followed him everywhere. As Michael turned onto a quieter street, he pulled his scarf tighter. That's when he heard it, soft at first, almost like the whimper of a small animal. Then clearer. A voice. Fragile, trembling, carrying more pain than words could hold. "Please, don't take my baby." Michael froze. The voice was close. He turned his head and spotted movement near the corner, by an old stone building that looked forgotten by time. Under the weak glow of a flickering street lamp, a woman sat on the ground. She held something close to her chest, rocking back and forth. He hesitated. Many people in his world would have walked away. It wasn't his problem, they would say. But Michael was not built that way. His heart wouldn't let him. Slowly, he stepped closer. The woman looked up, her eyes wide with fear, as if she expected someone to snatch her child from her arms. Her hair was messy, strands falling over her pale face. Her coat was thin, hardly enough for the night's chill. The baby she held was wrapped in a worn blanket, but Michael could see the little face peeking through pink cheeks, eyes closed in peaceful sleep. "I'm not here to hurt you," Michael said gently, his voice calm and steady. Are you all right?" The woman blinked, unsure whether to trust him. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she shook her head. "They'll take her. I know they will. I can't let them." Michael crouched slightly, lowering himself to her level. He kept a little distance so she wouldn't feel trapped. "Who will take her?" he asked quietly. Her lips trembled. "The people, the system, someone. I don't know. I just know I can't lose her." She hugged the baby tighter, pressing her cheek against the little forehead. Michael's chest tightened. He had seen fear before in boardrooms, in financial crises, but never like this. This was the fear of a mother who thought the world was about to break her apart. "Your baby is safe with you right now," he said softly. "What's her name?" The woman hesitated, then whispered, "Lily." "Lily," Michael repeated, as if saying the name out loud could protect the child. "She's beautiful." For a long moment, silence hung between them. The only sound was the soft hum of traffic in the distance and the quiet breathing of the baby. Michael studied the woman more closely now. She looked exhausted, her clothes worn, her hands red from the cold. There was a story behind her eyes, one she hadn't told yet. "Do you have somewhere to go tonight?" he asked gently. She shook her head quickly, panic rising in her face again. "No. And please, don't call anyone. If they find out, they'll take her from me. I can't let that happen." Michael took a slow breath. He understood more than she realized. When his wife had died, there had been a night when he had sat on the floor of his own room, holding Anna, whispering to the walls, "Please don't take her from me. She's all I have left." The memory burned inside him, and now, looking at this stranger, he felt the echo of his own pain. "I'm not going to call anyone," he promised. I don't like the thought of you and Lily out here in the cold." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they weren't only fear. They were also relief, small and cautious, as though she wanted to believe him but didn't know if she should. "Why are you helping me?" she asked in a whisper. Michael gave a faint smile. "Because once, I needed someone to help me too." The woman pressed her lips together, clutching Lily closer. She didn't answer, but her eyes softened slightly. Michael straightened slowly, pulling off his gloves. He crouched again and held them out to her. "Here. Your hands must be freezing." She stared at the gloves, then at him, as if weighing whether she could accept such a simple gesture. Finally, with trembling fingers, she took them and slid them on. They were far too big, but warmth spread across her face as if the gesture itself carried more comfort than the gloves could ever provide. "Thank you," she whispered. Michael nodded, feeling something shift inside him. He didn't know this woman's story yet, why she was here, how she had fallen so low, but he knew one thing for certain. Walking away was no longer an option. As he stood there under the flickering street lamp, with the city stretching behind him and the fragile figure of a mother before him, Michael realized that his life was about to change. Not because of a business deal or a new opportunity, but because of a choice. A choice to listen. A choice to care. And as the baby stirred softly in her mother's arms, the faintest sound of a coo breaking the night air, Michael's heart answered with a quiet certainty. This was not a chance encounter. This was the beginning of something he could not yet understand, but something he knew he was meant to be part of. The woman shifted slightly, adjusting the blanket around her baby as if trying to shield her from the world. Michael stood nearby, unsure of what to do next. He could feel her hesitation. She was still studying him, still deciding if he was someone she could trust. The street lamp flickered again, casting shadows across her face, and for a brief moment, Michael saw the deep exhaustion written in her eyes. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated before answering. "Sarah." Michael nodded, repeating it as though storing it safely in his memory. "Sarah. And little Lily." Sarah's lips trembled into a faint smile, almost invisible, but it was there. The baby shifted in her arms, making a soft sound, and Sarah's eyes immediately filled with worry again. She rocked the child gently, humming something broken, almost like a lullaby, but interrupted by her tears. Michael could feel the ache in her voice. "You love her very much," he said gently. "She's all I have," Sarah whispered. "If I lose her, there's nothing left of me." Michael didn't interrupt. He knew sometimes silence was kinder than words. He let her speak at her own pace, let her heart pour out what it had carried for so long. "I had a job," she continued after a pause, her voice trembling. "It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep a roof over us. Then, the company closed. Just like that, one morning they told us not to come back. I tried to find something else, but everywhere I went, they said they weren't hiring. Bills piled up. Rent notices came. I thought I could catch up, but," she shook her head. "One day, the landlord told me to leave. I had nowhere to go." Michael felt his chest tighten as he listened. He could picture it, the panic, the helplessness, the way doors seemed to shut one by one until there were no doors left to knock on. "I tried staying with friends for a while," Sarah continued. "But everyone has their own problems. No one wants a baby crying at night, no one wants an extra mouth to feed. I stopped asking after a while. I didn't want to feel like a burden." Her hands tightened protectively around Lily. "I've been trying to keep her warm, trying to feed her with what little I can find. But every day, I feel like I'm failing her. And I'm so scared. I know if anyone sees us like this, if anyone reports me, they'll say I'm unfit. They'll take her away. And I'd rather," she stopped, her voice cracking, tears spilling again. "I'd rather sleep on the streets forever than lose her." Michael's heart ached. He had faced boardrooms filled with hardened investors, negotiations that lasted hours, decisions worth millions. But nothing had ever hit him like this, a mother's fear of losing the one thing she loved most. "Sarah," he said gently, "you haven't failed her. You're still here, holding her, protecting her. That's not failure. That's love." Her eyes lifted slowly to meet his, as if searching his face for any sign of insincerity. But all she found was calm honesty. For a moment, she simply stared at him, her lips parted but no words coming out. Michael thought of Anna. How small she had been when her mother passed away. He had held her in his arms, feeling helpless, unsure of how he would raise her alone. There had been nights when he had cried silently, not letting anyone see. He remembered whispering to the empty room, "I don't know how to do this, but I will try. I won't let you go." And that promise had carried him through. Now, standing in front of Sarah, it was as though life had brought him face to face with his own reflection from years ago. "Do you trust me enough to let me help you?" he asked softly. Sarah's grip on Lily tightened. "Help how?" "First, by making sure you two aren't out here in the cold," he said. "I can get you something warm to eat, a safe place to stay tonight. Nothing more than that, just a little comfort for now." Her eyes filled with fresh tears. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to rest, even for just one night, without fear pressing on her chest. But trust was a fragile thing, especially after all she had endured. Michael didn't push. He simply waited, his calm presence a silent reassurance. Finally, Sarah gave the faintest nod. "Okay," she whispered. Relief washed over Michael, though he kept his expression gentle so she wouldn't feel overwhelmed. "Thank you. I promise, you won't regret this." They began walking slowly, Sarah holding Lily close as Michael guided them toward a nearby cafe that stayed open late. The warm light spilling from its windows felt like a small miracle in the cold night. When they stepped inside, the smell of freshly baked bread and hot soup wrapped around them like a blanket. Michael asked the waitress quietly for some hot tea, soup, and fresh bread. Sarah sat in the corner, rocking Lily gently. When the food arrived, she stared at it for a long moment before whispering, "I can't pay." "You don't have to," Michael said softly. "Please, eat." Her hands shook slightly as she lifted the spoon, tasting the warm broth. Tears slid silently down her cheeks as she ate, though she tried to hide them. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't worrying about where the next meal would come from, at least for this moment. Michael watched quietly, giving her space. He didn't want her to feel like she owed him explanations. But after a while, Sarah spoke again, her voice low. "I used to dream," she said, staring into the steam rising from the bowl. "Dream about giving Lily a home filled with laughter. About reading her bedtime stories, teaching her how to walk, how to talk. I thought I'd be the kind of mother who could give her everything. But now," she shook her head, her shoulders trembling. "Now I can barely keep her safe." Michael leaned forward slightly. "Dreams don't disappear just because times are hard. They may feel far away, but they're still there, waiting. And you're still her mother. That hasn't changed." Her lips trembled into a weak smile. "You speak as if you know." "I do," Michael admitted. "When my wife passed away, I thought I couldn't do it. I thought raising my daughter alone would break me. But somehow, step by step, I managed. Not perfectly but with love. That's what matters most." Sarah's eyes widened slightly, and for the first time, she seemed to see him not just as a stranger but as someone who understood. As Lily stirred in her arms, Sarah kissed her forehead and whispered, maybe things can change. Michael smiled softly. They can. And I'd like to help, if you'll let me. Sarah didn't answer right away, but the way she looked at him, cautious, yet filled with a tiny spark of hope, was enough. That night, something shifted. In the quiet corner of a small cafe, a woman who had almost given up began to believe again. And a man who thought he was only passing through discovered that he couldn't walk away. The night outside had grown colder, but inside the cafe there was warmth, both from the food and from the fragile trust that had begun to grow between them. Sarah finished the last spoon of soup slowly, as though she didn't want the moment to end. Lily was still asleep, her tiny chest rising and falling peacefully in her mother's arms. Michael checked the time. It was later than he had planned, and his little daughter would be waiting at home, but he couldn't bring himself to leave Sarah and Lily without knowing they were safe. He had promised himself that this wasn't just an act of pity, it was a choice, one that came from a place deep inside him. When Sarah set the empty bowl aside, she looked at Michael hesitantly. You've already done more than anyone else would. I don't want to trouble you any further. You're not troubling me, Michael said gently. But I don't think it's right for you to go back outside tonight. You both need proper rest. Sarah lowered her eyes. I can't afford a room anywhere. I know, Michael said softly. That's why I'm offering to arrange one for you. Just for tonight. A safe place to sleep. Her lips parted as if to argue, but no words came. She looked at Lily, then back at Michael, her eyes filled with a mix of pride and desperation. Finally, she whispered, why are you helping us? You don't even know me. Michael leaned back slightly, his voice calm but firm. Because I've been where you are, not in the same way, but in the way that matters. I know what it's like to feel like the world has turned its back on you. And I know what it's like to hold a child and wonder if you'll be enough. Someone helped me once. Maybe it's my turn now. Sarah swallowed hard, and for the first time, her shoulders relaxed just a little. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to, Michael said. Just let me help. The decision was made. Michael called his driver, who arrived within minutes. Sarah was nervous at first when she saw the sleek car waiting outside. She hesitated on the sidewalk, clutching Lily tightly, as though stepping into that car might mean stepping into something she couldn't control. Michael noticed her fear and reassured her softly. It's just a ride, nothing more. I'll take you to a safe hotel nearby. You'll have your own room. No one will bother you. She nodded faintly and stepped inside. The warmth of the car immediately wrapped around them. Sarah sat quietly, gazing out the window as the city lights passed by, her reflection faint in the glass. Michael watched her for a moment, then looked away, giving her the space to think. When they arrived at the hotel, Michael arranged everything at the front desk, requesting privacy and discretion. The staff, used to his presence, didn't ask questions. Within minutes, Sarah and Lily were shown to a clean, modest room with fresh sheets and a crib brought up by the staff. Sarah stood in the middle of the room, almost frozen. She looked around as though she had stepped into another world. The soft bed, the warm lighting, the quiet hum of safety, it was overwhelming. You can rest here tonight, Michael said gently. If you need anything, call the front desk. They'll help you. Sarah turned to him, her eyes shimmering with tears she tried to hold back. I don't know how long it's been since I've seen a room like this. Thank you. Truly. Michael gave a small nod. Get some rest. Both of you. He started to leave, but as his hand touched the doorknob, Sarah's voice stopped him. Michael. He turned. I don't know if I can ever repay you. But thank you for not walking away tonight. He met her gaze, and for a moment, Time seemed to pause. Some things aren't about repayment. Good night, Sarah. Good night, Lily. With that, he left quietly, though his mind carried the weight of the encounter long after. The next morning, Michael woke early. His daughter, Anna, was already at the breakfast table, her small hands gripping a crayon as she doodled on paper. "Daddy, you're late again," she said with a playful pout. Michael chuckled softly, kissing the top of her head. "I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry. But I promise I'm here now." Anna looked up at him with her curious brown eyes. "Were you helping someone?" Michael paused, surprised by her question. "Yes," he said finally. "How did you know?" Anna shrugged. "You always look different when you help people. Like, lighter. Like you're not carrying so much on your shoulders." Her words struck him deeply. He smiled, pulling her into a hug. "You're wiser than me sometimes." Later that day, between meetings and endless phone calls, Michael's thoughts kept drifting back to Sarah. He wondered if she had managed to rest, if Lily had slept peacefully, if they had eaten breakfast without worry for the first time in weeks. Part of him told himself that he had done enough, that he had already gone further than most would. But another part of him, the part that remembered his own lonely nights as a widowed father, knew he couldn't stop there. By evening, he returned to the hotel. When he knocked gently on the door, Sarah opened it slowly, Lily in her arms. She looked different already. Rest had softened the lines of exhaustion on her face. Her eyes, though still cautious, carried a small spark of life. "You came back," she said softly, almost surprised. "I said I wouldn't walk away," Michael replied. Sarah stepped aside, letting him in. Lily reached out with tiny fingers, and Michael couldn't help but smile as he gently touched her hand. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. "Yes," Sarah whispered. "It felt unreal. I kept waking up, thinking it was a dream. But it wasn't." She glanced around the room, then back at him. "I don't want to take advantage of your kindness. You've done so much already." Michael shook his head. "Sarah, this isn't about charity. This is about giving you and Lily a chance to breathe, to find your footing. One night of rest isn't enough. You need more than that." Her lips trembled. "I want to believe things can get better. But I've been disappointed so many times, I'm afraid to hope." Michael's voice was steady. "Then let me carry some of that hope for you, until you're ready to hold it yourself." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, but this time they weren't only tears of pain. They carried something else, something fragile and new. That evening, as Michael left the hotel, he realized that his life had already shifted. He had thought this would be a single act of kindness, something temporary. But deep down, he knew the truth: Sarah and Lily's story was now tied to his own. And though he couldn't yet see the path ahead, he felt certain of one thing. His choice to stop that night to listen, to care, was not the end of a moment. It was the beginning of a journey. A journey that would test his heart in ways no business ever could. The days that followed slowly began to change for Sarah. At first, she could hardly believe that someone like Michael would return. She had expected him to disappear after that one night, as most people did, kind for a moment, then gone forever. But each day, he came back, always calm, always gentle, never demanding anything in return. For Sarah, it was strange to be treated with such quiet respect. She had grown used to avoiding eye contact, to bracing herself for harsh words or judgmental stares. But Michael never looked at her with pity. He looked at her as if she were simply a person, no less, no more. One morning, after Lily had been fed and was sleeping peacefully in the crib the hotel staff had provided, Michael knocked softly on the door. Sarah opened it, and this time, instead of hesitation, there was a small smile waiting for him. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said. "Not at all," she replied. It's nice to have someone knock on my door for once. Michael returned her smile and stepped inside. He noticed the careful way she had tidied the room, as though she wanted to prove she was worthy of the space she had been given. I was thinking, Michael began, it might help if you had something steady to hold onto. Not just a safe room for a few nights, but a way to build forward. Sarah's smile faltered slightly. Like a job? Yes, Michael said gently. Do you have any experience in certain areas? Anything you'd like to do? Sarah lowered her eyes. I worked in an office before. Basic work, phones, paperwork. But that feels like a lifetime ago. Michael thought for a moment. I have a foundation that helps single parents, especially mothers. They often need help with managing the office, scheduling events, and keeping records. If you're willing, I could arrange something there. Nothing overwhelming, just a start. Sarah looked stunned. You'd trust me with that? Michael nodded. I trust people who have the strength to survive what you've survived. That's not weakness. That's determination. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. I don't want charity. This isn't charity, Michael said firmly. It's a chance. You'll earn it. And more importantly, it will give you and Lily a step forward. Sarah nodded slowly, her voice soft. Then, yes. I'll try. The first day at the foundation was both terrifying and exciting for Sarah. She dressed as neatly as she could, smoothing her worn clothes carefully. When she walked through the office doors, she felt dozens of eyes on her. But the staff were kind, and Michael had already explained her situation in a way that protected her dignity. She started small, answering phones, organizing files, learning the system. At first, she stumbled. She dropped papers, forgot small details, and worried constantly that she would make a mistake that would end everything. But each time, someone encouraged her gently, reminding her that learning took time. And every evening, when she returned to the hotel room, Lily's smile reminded her why she was trying so hard. The little girl giggled now more often, her tiny hands reaching for her mother's face, her eyes sparkling with trust. Sarah found herself laughing too, something she hadn't done in months. Meanwhile, Michael found his own life changing in quiet ways. His daughter Anna was naturally curious, and when he told her about Sarah and Lily, her eyes lit up with excitement. Can I meet them, Daddy? She asked one evening as she twirled around the living room with her coloring book. Michael hesitated, but then he smiled. Yes. I think you should. The meeting happened on a Saturday afternoon at a small park. Sarah was nervous, holding Lily close as she waited. But when Anna came running toward them, her little arms stretched wide, Sarah's heart softened. Anna peeked at Lily, giggling at the tiny fingers that reached out from the blanket. She's so small. Anna exclaimed. Can I hold her? Sarah glanced at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. Carefully, Sarah placed Lily into Anna's arms, supporting her gently. Anna looked down at the baby with wide, tender eyes, whispering, Hi, Lily. I'm Anna. We're going to be friends. Sarah's chest tightened, but this time with joy. She hadn't expected her baby to be welcomed so warmly by another child. Watching Anna cradle Lily with such love made her realize something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time: hope. Michael watched the scene with quiet pride. He had worried that bringing them together might be too soon, but as he saw Anna's gentle nature and Sarah's cautious but growing trust, he knew he had made the right choice. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah's confidence grew. At the foundation, she began taking on more responsibility. She organized schedules, coordinated with families, and even offered ideas that surprised Michael with their practicality. You're a natural at this, Michael told her one afternoon. Sarah blushed, shaking her head. I'm just trying my best. And your best is exactly what we need, Michael replied warmly. For the first time in years, Sarah felt valuable not just as a struggling mother, but as a capable person with skills to offer. She stood taller, spoke with more certainty, and even began to smile more often. But perhaps the most beautiful change came in the quiet moments. At night, when she tucked Lily into bed, she whispered stories of hope instead of fear. In the mornings, she woke up not with dread, but with determination. One evening, Michael invited Sarah and Lily to dinner at his home. Anna was thrilled, running around the house excitedly as they arrived. "Come on. Come on. I want to show you my drawings," Anna said, grabbing Sarah's hand. Sarah laughed softly, allowing herself to be led into the living room where Anna proudly displayed her colorful creations. Lily sat on Michael's lap, giggling as he bounced her gently. For the first time in a long time, the house felt alive with warmth and laughter. As the evening went on, Sarah found herself watching Michael with Anna and Lily. His patience, his quiet strength, his ability to make both children feel safe, it stirred something deep in her heart. She realized he wasn't just helping out of duty. He was genuinely present, genuinely caring. After dinner, as Anna ran off to play, Sarah whispered to Michael, "You've given us more than I could ever repay." Michael shook his head. "You've given me something too, Sarah." She looked at him, puzzled. "You've reminded me that life isn't just about building companies or chasing success. It's about people. It's about moments like this, seeing children laugh, seeing hope return. You've given that back to me." Sarah felt her throat tighten, her eyes glistening. For a long time, she had believed she was nothing more than a burden, a shadow on the edge of society. But here, in this home filled with love, she realized she was becoming part of something bigger. That night, when Sarah returned to the hotel with Lily, she sat on the edge of the bed and held her baby close. "We're not alone anymore," she whispered softly. "We're finding our way. And maybe we've found something even more than safety." Lily cooed softly in reply, and Sarah smiled through her tears. For Michael, the journey had started with a choice on a dark street corner. For Sarah, it had started with a desperate plea, "Please don't take my baby." But together, their paths had intertwined, leading them to a place neither of them had expected. And though the future was still uncertain, one thing was clear: they had begun to build trust, to build family, to build a new life together. Months passed, and life began to look completely different for Sarah and Lily. What had once been endless nights of cold sidewalks and fear of tomorrow slowly turned into mornings filled with light, warmth, and purpose. Sarah no longer woke up wondering where her next meal would come from. Instead, she woke up with a sense of direction. She had a steady job at Michael's foundation, a routine with Lily, and most importantly, she had people around her who cared. Her transformation didn't happen overnight. At first, she had doubted herself constantly. Every time she answered the office phone, she braced for a mistake. Every time she looked at Michael, she wondered if he regretted helping her. But each passing week taught her something new. She wasn't weak. She wasn't broken. She was simply rebuilding. The team at the foundation grew to admire her. They saw how she worked tirelessly, how she treated every family who came for help with kindness and understanding. Sarah knew their struggles because she had lived them. Parents who walked in with downcast eyes found comfort in her words. They trusted her because she wasn't just speaking from books or training, she was speaking from her own scars. Michael noticed the change too. In meetings, she began to speak up more, sharing thoughtful ideas. She organized events for struggling parents, coordinated volunteers, and even suggested programs that no one had thought of before. Slowly, she was no longer just someone he had helped, she was becoming an essential part of his mission. But the biggest change of all wasn't in the office. It was at home. Anna had grown attached to Sarah and Lily. Whenever they visited, Anna would run straight to Lily's crib, giggling as the baby reached out to grab her hair or tug at her fingers. She would sit on the floor with Sarah, drawing pictures while Sarah told her stories in her gentle voice. Sometimes Anna would say, "It feels like I have a sister now," and Michael's heart would ache with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. One evening, after a long day at work, Michael came home to find Anna sitting on the couch with Sarah and Lily. The three of them were laughing at something silly Anna had said, the room filled with a sound he hadn't realized he missed so much. For a moment, he just stood at the doorway, watching them. His daughter wasn't lonely anymore. Sarah wasn't lost anymore. And he wasn't empty anymore. That night, after Anna went to bed, Sarah stayed behind for tea. They sat at the dining table, the room quiet except for the faint ticking of the clock. "You've done so much for me," Sarah said softly, her hands wrapped around the warm cup. "I don't even know how to put it into words." Michael shook his head. "Sarah, you've done just as much for me. You've reminded me what matters most." She looked at him, her eyes searching his. "Sometimes I wonder why you didn't just walk away that night. You could have." Michael's voice was calm, steady. "Because I saw myself in you. Years ago, I was holding Anna in my arms, terrified of the future, wondering if I could do it alone. If someone had walked past me that night, I don't know what would have happened. But I promised myself, if I ever had the chance, I would be the one who stayed. I couldn't ignore you. I didn't want to." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, but this time they weren't tears of fear or hopelessness. They were tears of gratitude, of healing. "You've given me back my life. And more than that, you've given Lily a future." Michael smiled gently. "And you've given Anna something I couldn't give her alone. You've given her someone to laugh with, someone to look up to." The silence that followed was not empty. It was filled with unspoken understanding, with the quiet bond of two people who had carried pain but had chosen hope. As the seasons changed, Sarah found a small apartment of her own. It wasn't grand, but it was hers. She decorated Lily's room with soft blankets and little stars on the wall. When she tucked her daughter into bed, she no longer whispered promises through tears, she spoke them with confidence. "We're safe now, Lily. We're building something new." Michael and Anna visited often. They shared dinners, walks in the park, and afternoons at the foundation where Anna would play with the children while Sarah worked. What had started as two separate worlds slowly blended into one. One afternoon, the foundation hosted a community event. Parents, children, and volunteers filled the hall with chatter and laughter. Michael stood at the front, giving a short speech about hope and resilience. When he finished, he invited Sarah to speak. Sarah froze at first, her hands trembling. Public speaking had never been her strength. But when she looked down at Lily, who was smiling up at her from her stroller, courage filled her heart. She stepped forward, her voice soft at first but growing stronger with each word. "I know what it's like to feel invisible. I know what it's like to think the world has forgotten you. But I stand here today because someone didn't walk away. Someone believed I was worth helping. And because of that, my daughter and I have a chance at a new life. If you're here tonight and you feel like giving up, please don't. You are stronger than you think. And sometimes, help comes when you least expect it." The room erupted in gentle applause. Michael watched her with pride, his heart swelling at the sight of her standing tall, no longer the broken woman he had met under the streetlight, but a woman of strength and hope. Months later, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, Michael and Sarah sat together on a park bench while Anna and Lily played nearby. The air was filled with laughter and the sound of children chasing one another. "Do you ever think about that night?" Sarah asked suddenly. "All the time," Michael admitted. "It reminds me that the smallest choices can change everything." Sarah nodded, her eyes following Anna and Lily. I was so close to giving up. But then you stopped. You listened. You cared. That changed everything for me." Michael looked at her, his expression soft. "Sometimes the people we meet by accident turn out to be the people we needed all along." Sarah met his gaze, and for the first time, she didn't feel unworthy of his kindness. She felt equal, like someone who belonged. As the sun began to set, Anna ran over, holding Lily's tiny hand. "Daddy. Look. Lily can walk now." They both turned to see Lily wobbling on unsteady legs, giggling as she took small steps across the grass. Sarah laughed, her heart full, while Michael clapped and encouraged the little girl. It was a simple moment, but it was everything. In that instant, Sarah realized that her story was no longer one of loss. It was one of renewal. And Michael realized that his life, once centered only around work and quiet grief, was now rich with connection, with laughter, with love. Years from that night, people might look at Michael and see a successful CEO. They might look at Sarah and see a strong, capable woman. They might look at Lily and Anna and see two sisters by heart. But what they wouldn't see was the night it all began, the night a homeless woman whispered through tears, "Please don't take my baby," and a man with everything stopped because he couldn't walk away. That night wasn't the end of Sarah's story. It was the beginning. The beginning of family, of hope, of a future worth holding onto. And together, they carried that story forward, not as strangers bound by chance, but as people bound by love, trust, and the courage to believe that new beginnings are always possible.